we shut the sites, and then we went back. Then we tried to figure out, how do we go back and do it safely? And then it was a case of, we've got 3 small children, as you know, and it's like they were at home needing to be homeschooled. Someone needs to go on site. One of us needs to look after the kids, a bit like your situation. And it just made sense for Scott to be on site and me to be a teacher. I'm not a good teacher. As my kids will attest to. I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but if I had one word to describe that whole experience, it would be harrowing. It was horrible, and I don't really know anyone that came out of it well, not with kids. And at first I was trying to juggle, keeping up with the emails and keeping on top of paperwork and whatnot with the kids. In the end, I just gave up, and I just said, I need to just down tools, and I just had to let stuff go, really. I just really would like to get to a point like where and I sort of had this from the outset. I never wanted to be like a massive, like huge conglomerate sized business, but to be sufficiently sized so that you can have a bit of influence. Like, as I say, the construction industry does have a bad reputation, and rightly so in a lot of cases, for, shonky work, shoddy customer service, and treating staff really poorly. And it's, to be of a size where you can have an influence over those things is, and we are actually sort of making waves in that area. We do have much better connections now. Be brave. Because fear is really the only thing that will just hold you back. Yeah, if I could be braver and do more things. They always say, you don't generally regret the things you do, it's the things you didn't do. So be brave, be bold.
Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. So, following on from an amazing article in last month's International Women's Day special feature in SBT, I had an amazing conversation with my guest over a coffee, actually. And at the time, I said to her, I wish I just recorded this for the podcast. Fast forward a month, here we are. I'm delighted to welcome Rebecca Blott to the podcast. How are you, Rebecca? You all right?
I'm really well, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for inviting me, Sam.
Oh, awesome. Like I said, when we had that chat in Platform 9 after the photo shoot, I was like, it was such a brilliant conversation, and obviously with your journey and where you are with the business and stuff. So I knew it'd be a great episode, so great to have you on. And as always, look, we're going to jump straight in. Tell us a little bit about your business journey, where it all started, and where you are.
Thank you. You just wanted another Essex person, didn't you, really?
Absolutely that.
So I moved to Brighton in the late 90s to join a graduate training scheme. And it was there that I met my husband. I didn't know he was going to be my husband at the time, in a nightclub. And I was sort of fresh out of university, going to be this hotshot graduate software design engineer. And I met this guy in a nightclub. It doesn't exist anymore, although the location's still there, called the Cuba. And he was at the time working as a shuttering carpenter for a big civil engineering company called Aiden Starr. And I quite liked this boy. And straight away, I pretty much knew he was the one. But I was a bit miffed because I hadn't imagined that I would end up with a builder, being a professional person. So I did what lots of women do, find a good guy and then try to change him. So I sort of said, look, you've got to be more than a builder. So I pushed him into starting a business, a construction company, which was a bit of a disaster in the beginning, basically because I was just trying to micromanage him all of the time, and it caused a lot of friction and arguments. So after a little while, I just stepped away. But that's really when Castle Construction was formed. Right. And he ran it on his own for quite a number of years. We've been going 17 years, and I've only been in the business since 2018. Right. So yeah, he ran it on his own up until that point when I kind of stepped in and took a different role in the company.
And so what was it then? Because you obviously been in the corporate world for like 20 odd years, isn't it? So what was it in 2018 then that made you go, right, I want to jump into the family business? Was it that it was growing to a stage you thought I could help, or what was the reason behind that?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things going on. We were married at that point, and we've got 3 children, and I was actually looking for a change, and I'd gone around that sort of cycle of, I want to do something different, but I don't know what it is. Yeah. I was working for American Express at the time, which is a really, really good employer, and I still say that today. They're a fantastic employer, and I was working in IT, which was, a well-paid job. So it's really hard to kind of turn your back on that, unless you have a burning ambition to do something else. Yeah. So I'd kind of searched for, well, what can I do, different, and I kicked around a lot of ideas. I even thought about buying a sandwich bar at one point, and then I was like, do I really want to be making sandwiches for the next 20 years? And no, I've got nothing against making sandwiches, but yeah. So,
but you wanted to do something that was yours. You wanted to run your own business. That was what was going around your head in at that time.
I think so, because what I always say to people is, like, if you ask an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? They never, ever come back and say, what I'd really like to do is be a middle manager in an IT department. And then kind of fast forward 20 years, and that's what you find yourself doing. Yeah. And you, as I say, I don't want to say anything bad against American Express, and the job was great and everything, but it's that sort of sense of there must be more to it than this. And I think, particularly once you've had children, you do look at the world in a slightly different way. Yeah, absolutely. And Scott was really struggling. He basically said to me, like, I physically can't do any more with this business on my own. Yeah. He'd got to a point where he was like, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. So at the end, the answer was kind of staring us in the face. Yeah. So I packed in my job and went to work for a family business, because the rationale was, everything we invest in this, like emotionally, time-wise, financially, will be for the greater good of our family. So we'll sort of build something for the family. Yeah. It sounds a bit twee.
No, not at all. Look, ultimately, as a father, what else do we do it for? Like, I'm running my own businesses for nearly 15 years now, and I work long hours sometimes, and a lot of juggling, as we've spoke about offline a lot. But no, ultimately, it is. That's what we're doing it for them, isn't it? And for the family environment, and for all of us, like, for a better life for us, a better life for them, and whatever that looks like, not just financially, but maybe work-life balance if we ever get to that stage as well. But that's what we hope to achieve from it, I guess.
I mean, you probably work longer hours than you would in like a PAYE role, but especially when you've got young children, as you'll know, the twins. You can have that flexibility. If you need to take an afternoon out because they've got to play at school or whatever, it does give you that option. Yeah. So, it's the combination of all of those things, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm keen to, because I asked a lot, but so you obviously went into that corporate world, and obviously when you was at university and studying engineering, electrical engineering. Yeah. But so was there never then... from a younger age, like any form of entrepreneurial sort of side of it, you thinking about running their own business, or was that ever a mindset from a young age, or never?
No, I mean, I think like my parents were quite boring in that regard. They were kind of like, have a career, build a career. I'd never even really considered it. The opportunity for business only really came about because I wanted my, future spouse to make something of himself so that, we would be financially stable in the future. I wouldn't say, although I've always had like a determination and a drive and an ambition.
Yeah, and I guess that work. And what I'm interested as well in to see that, like, what sort of skills you really took from, that corporate world that you're able to then take into a small family business that you're able to go into and then use some of those skills.
Yeah, so most of the work, although I was in tech, after I'd completed my graduate training, which was quite a technical role. I that sort of evolved through a number of different roles into more of a consultancy type role, and that's really the role that I've had in the kind of more recent career experience. And that sort of lends itself quite well to running a business because it's more of a strategic thinking position. So you've got to look at things from a sort of 50,000 foot viewpoint and be flexible. You're not kind of entrenched in one specific line of work. You need to be able to think across a number of problems, to have good communication skills, to be able to bring people on a journey with you. And I think these are all things that are useful when running a business. So we kind of felt like with my background in consultancy and Scott's background in large-scale civil engineering projects, those two combined would make for a beautiful construction company.
Absolutely. But also, like you said, something taken out of that from, and like I said again, something probably me and you spoke about offline, and a lot of that, like communication skills, especially whatever that looks like, whether it's to the team, whether it's to people that you meet out and about, whether it's to clients, whatever it is. That's such a powerful element of running any business, isn't it? Because people still buy from people if you're able to communicate with people at whatever level that looks like. People on a building site to a high-end client maybe that you're doing a project for, that you will be able to communicate with them at all the different levels.
I mean, there's that word that gets bandied around a lot at the moment, which is being authentic. Which, you know, I'm not that keen on that word, but it really I think it's really just about being real and honest and truthful, and like you say, speaking to the guys who are working on site and speaking to clients. It's just about being able to kind of speak their language and just be honest and open in your communication with them.
Yeah, sure.
And you know what it's like. I mean, everyone in Brighton knows everyone, don't they?
It's a large place, but the smallest place in the world. You're right, especially within the business community as well. Everyone. It's a part of me that loves that. And I think I fell in love with that sort of side of it down here. And I think as long as you do things with integrity, you're not screwing people over. You know, you build a reputation, I guess, for yourself, which you hope that it is a good one. That, you know, people will support each other and want to help each other and want to work together, collaborate, whatever that looks like. And that's the beauty of what I guess that. And what's going to be interesting, I've said it on the podcast a couple of times, especially as county business clubs grows, I'm going to be really intrigued to see what it looks like as we go to other counties and how that pans out, because I don't know how unique Sussex is, or Brighton especially, but how that business community is, whether it's unique or whether it is in every. I've only run a business here, so that's all I know. But
although, I mean, it's a very broad. If you take East and West Sussex, it's huge, isn't it?
Absolutely,
you know, maybe there's something about being coastal. I don't know, proximity to the sea, that people are just a little bit more open to having those conversations. Unlike London. Be interesting.
It will. I'm intrigued to it, but I'm keen as well. And obviously, as you just alluded to about the whole communication with people on site or whatever that looks on clients, but you obviously from electrical engineering, like you sort of studied. I think I read that you was only one or two women that finished that course, and you said within the industries that you've worked in, male dominated, and so, but not phased you in any way. Doesn't what? Why do you think that is, like, from your own perspective?
So I think I was fortunate that I grew up in a household where there wasn't a belief system that, like, girls were nurses and boys were doctors. Kind of thinking. So it was kind of like you can be anything you want. My parents were very much like, you know, you should have aspirations. And, you know, I had a lot of Barbies, but equally I had a chemistry set, and do you know what I mean? So, and then when it came, so I guess it was that coupled with actually being poor in some respects, because when I came out of my A-levels, I was really thinking about doing a performing arts degree.
Okay.
And I think I might have mentioned this to you before, actually, but it was a case of, because I grew up on a council estate, you know, in a council house, we didn't have money. I was like, oh, come on, Becca, you know, that's never going to work. You know, the chance of you making a success of this is, like, you know, slim to none. I didn't have that support network behind me.
Yeah.
So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll do engineering because it's got, a bit of kudos. It's academic enough and it can open doors. And it was really about trying to keep as many options open to me as possible.
Yeah,
so it's it's a broad academic degree. And there was never that belief system that because I was a girl, I couldn't do it because of how my upbringing was, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of how
It's interesting because a couple of things to take from me. Like, it's amazing that your parents, like I said, certainly even from that age, being able to say that you can do anything. I think that there's still. I've got twins, a boy and a girl, and I think we've obviously spoke that Luca very much is very gender fluid, so it's that stigma around what he's going to have boys' toys and she's going to have girls' toys, and that's that he's going to go and play football and she's going to go and play with Barbie. Like, that completely is out of the question in our house, and I think. Obviously, the times have changed a lot, haven't they, over the years, where things are not so much like that, where although it is still very relevant, even to the fact of it's opened my eyes going into shops and just going, look, there's boys and girls clothes, and I know that is our life is, but you sort of think, could this whole gender neutral thing that people can do, actually whatever it is they want, there shouldn't be this there is male-dominated areas and as much as there is women's, but I think it's interesting to see that even from that young age that you was still been able to show that path that you could go and do whatever.
Yeah, and I think both things are okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you do want to wear, pink feather boas, and whether you're a boy or a girl, actually, it doesn't really matter. It's like, do what makes you happy, but just don't. And it is. I mentioned that about, girls being nurses and boys being doctors, because it's that sort of language that's quite insidious. It's like sowing a seed, when they're playing, as toddlers, and they're playing make-believe. And you're like, oh, are you a nurse? People would naturally say that. Whereas in my house, it was like, oh, are you a doctor? You do have to be a bit careful of that. But then, going the other way, don't reject everything that's pink and girly just because I'm a feminist. And I was fortunate that I had both, and I still like to have both. So yeah.
And the other side, because you mentioned then about obviously you was encouraged to you could do whatever, but there was still that element of, like you said, maybe that your parents sort of said that go and get a job, and because you said about their sort of go and get a job, like to run a business, that wasn't, because it's similar with me. Like my parents were not entrepreneurial really, so didn't running a business or something like that was never really a thing that you'd go, oh yeah, you're going to do well at school and then go and get a job and then you work hard, and they taught me a really strong work ethic, no question about it. They was really hard workers, both my mum and dad, and I've got that from them, but not that entrepreneurial side or that business. And I think, like I've spoke about it on here a lot, I think there's times have changed again around that entrepreneurship is actually encouraged more in schools. Like if we went back to school now and with our mindsets the way we are, I'd like to think that I've been as a mentor in a school now, and I'll go in, I'll see that because it's really encouraged entrepreneurship, whereas it wasn't back.
And do you not think that some of that is about financial stability as well? Like if you grow up and you're hard up, then your willingness to take risks are maybe much less. And actually, my dad had a business years before. When I was really little, he had a bookies, a betting shop, and it had gone bust. So, I mean, my parents never really spoke about this, but I do know that they were made homeless, so they were evicted. And that was before local authorities were obliged to rehome you, so we were literally on the streets. My mum said, like, the bailiffs came to take all the stuff out of the house, and she was like out here pregnant, and they had nowhere to go, and we went and stayed with my aunt. So I mean, maybe that influenced them. I don't know, I'd never really
that's interesting.
Considered it.
And when did you find out about that? Like, when did they talk to you about that? Like later?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it was never really spoken about much, apart from the fact that, my mum said that things had been, because I knew we'd moved, so I was born in Lancashire, so I'm not truly an Essex girl. I'm a Lancashire lass, but I knew that
with a twinge of an Essex twang in it.
Yeah,
help me out with the Essex twang.
We're going to do our 40 pounds and feathers on a brush again.
Of course, we had to get A.
Yeah. So we'd moved from there to go to Northamptonshire to stay with my sister, my aunt, my mum's sister. And then we moved from there. My dad actually went back to university as a mature student because apparently he was quite depressed after he lost the business. And my mum encouraged him to go back and do A-levels. Yeah. And then he went to university. So we all then decamped down to Exeter. And then he got his first job out of uni in Essex. And then we all moved. So I knew we'd moved around a lot. Yeah. So my mum just explained, that was the reason they'd fallen on hard times. And
But it's interesting that it's not that... even knowing that, for you, that's not made you... It's had the adverse effect rather than, God, don't ever want to be in that position where, lost a business and whatever, you've still gone, that is the route for me, because, like you said, you create your own... By being your own boss, by having your own business, you can create potentially your own lifestyle, as tough as it is as well, and all the challenges with it. But it is... I always look at it like you're creating your own destiny rather than being reliant on... someone else's business.
Yeah, and I suppose that generation as well, people had a job for life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so sort of kind of culturally, if you went to work, and perhaps that's why they pushed me towards the big corporates. You get into a big corporation, they'll look after you. Yeah, culture. But I mean, these days that's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think people's willingness to take being in work is riskier because you could get made redundant. So then that kind of makes the whole weighing that up against being in business, perhaps it's not such a big risk. And I guess it depends what business you're in. I mean, running a book is high risk, isn't it? Of course. That's not a business I would like to be in or know anything about. Sure. I mean, Scott and I don't know loads about construction. I know a lot more than I did when I stepped in, but he really knows the business. And I can do the kind of more, strategic management side. Yeah. So one would hope, fingers crossed.
Because that is a great part. Because I guess I'm really keen to find out from you what, when I run the salon, I wasn't a hairdresser, so I found that potentially there were some challenges with that. Obviously, because people were looking, you don't necessarily know what you're talking about. I guess do you ever find that with when you're speaking to clients or whatever, if people that obviously that you're not actually in construction in that sense, that you're doing that work, or does it work out in a good way because you've got your business partner who's your husband who does know that side of it, so you've got different skill sets on that front.
I mean, I guess unlike your situation where you're facing outwardly to clients and facing the team, I think it's the team conversation that's more challenging because when they know more about the technicalities of things than you do, and you can't sort of converse in their language, I imagine that's really tough. And I suppose that's where we have the advantage. Scott can talk about steel beams till the cows come home, and he does it too much, in my opinion.
He knows his steel beams.
But, a client going into your salon, they won't necessarily know about all the mixes of, I mean, you can tell I know nothing about it either, but, like the hair colours and, the different techniques. But then you're speaking so I'm the one speaking to our clients in their language. We've got now a client manager who looks after our clients from the office. So we have the site manager, but we also have a person in the office who's dedicated to our clients, and she helps to sort of bridge that language gap between, what the guys on site talk about in technical terms and how the client, I was speaking to an electrician earlier today about something, and he was going on and on and on about, well, this solution, that solution, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, none of that is really relevant. I just want it to work like this. You flick a switch and this happens, and that's the way the client sees it,
Yeah, and I guess that's it. That is a challenge. But I guess from your point of view, it is going in. You're delivering. You're getting that message to them. And again, back to what we said before, isn't it? It's communication, isn't it? You're getting that communication from the client. You got to deliver that, and whether that's through you or to Scott, and then look, we've got to make this happen. That's what they want, and that's what we've got to deliver on. And that's.
I mean, occasionally we get to see like other contractors' quotes when they go out to customers, and it always makes me laugh. And sometimes people send, like, if we subcontract some stuff out and we get a quote in, they'll do it to us, but I guess we should know more. But you know, they'll specify down to like the screws that they're going to use. It's like, who cares? You've got to have like trust in the contractor to deliver. They, you know, the client won't necessarily know that screw is better than that screw. Why? You know, they just want to know that if you knock half the walls out, their house is not going to fall down, and it's all going to look beautiful at the end.
That's the reason that, like, you know, if people could build their own stuff, they would do it themselves. If they can't, that's why they get you guys in to come and do it. I can't even hang a picture up on the wall.
Oh, really?
So when we go buy our house, you're definitely coming and having a look. But yeah, Kelly always digs me out about that. Anyway, that's another story. But
we've all got our skills.
We've all got our skill sets. I love a chat, so that's why I'm in here and I love it.
Yeah,
so we're all good. But look, I'm keen to. We always talk about obviously challenges and stuff like that. So, and I'm keen to, you know, you joined the business in 2018. You know, less than 2 years down the line, bang, global pandemic. What does that look like? What did you think at that time? Talk to me about the last couple of years. And
okay, I'm not going to swear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Since I started in the company, I feel like the albatross, really, because like we've had Brexit. Then Scott's mum sadly was diagnosed with cancer, which then became terminal, and then literally she died, and 3 weeks later we were in lockdown. So it's like I'm not good for this business. That's how it felt. But yeah. Lockdown was particularly challenging, especially the first time. The second, it might have been the third one. I lost count.
They all blended into one.
Exactly.
Almost, didn't they?
But when I was at home, so we had to shut our sites initially. I think we kept one going, which was a commercial site, and we took the decision because we would have done that regardless of the lockdown because we're in people's homes.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know, like, it seems weird harping back to that time now, but I mean, I was like literally anti-backing my shopping, and which is crazy. You know, I think I read an article and someone was saying that they were picking up their letters with wooden spoons and, you know, putting them in quarantine. But I think the sense that nobody really knew what it was, how virulent it was, like you knew there were people dying. So, you know, to be responsible to our team and customers, you know, we shut the sites and then we went back. Then we tried to figure out, you know, how do we go back and do it safely? And then it was a case of we've got 3 small children, as you know, and it's like they were at home needing to be homeschooled. Someone needs to go on site. One of us needs to look after the kids, a bit like your situation. Exactly. And it just made sense for Scott to be on site and me to be a teacher.
How was that?
I'm not a good teacher. As my kids will attest to. I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but if I had one word to describe that whole experience, it would be harrowing.
Yeah,
it was horrible, and I don't really know anyone that came out of it well, not with kids. And at first I was trying to juggle, you know, keeping up with the emails and keeping on top of paperwork and whatnot with the kids. In the end I just gave up and I just said, like, I need to just down tools and I can't just have to let stuff go, really.
Of course. Look, I think we all did. Like, at that point, like you said, because the message really was like you said, you're talking about anti-backing and all that side of it. It was such a situation where we didn't know if you got it, you might die. Like that was the sort of the message, and I think everyone was really panicking. It was very doomsday, and no one really knew what was around the corner, and it was quite scary. So then, there's that and the worry and anxiety that sort of comes with that, and then you like you say, you get to a point where with the kids at home, you're trying to do because yours are different ages as well, aren't they? Obviously.
Yeah. So I mean, they're 10, 9 and. Sorry, I forget. 6. 10, 9 and 6 now. So it was like 2 years. 2 years, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. So like they were really young at the time, and just trying to manage the needs of 3 different. But, you know, everyone I speak to, it doesn't matter whether you've got one child, 5 kids, 2 the same age, you know, different ages. It was just really bloody hard, wasn't it?
And it was, because like you said, it was all that stress of that financial and stuff as well. Like what's working, especially when you got your own business, you're looking at the final.
Well, we lost a pipeline that. I can imagine, literally. Because I think until the furlough really kicked in, again, because we predominantly do residential, a lot of people then said, they were progressed down the road with their projects, but they then said, well, we don't know what's going to happen with our jobs. So we don't want to take on the financial commitment of a big project.
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to wait till next year. So then you're kind of, when you do go back, you're then left with, how do we go back safely? How do we look after people? We had a couple of people who are quite vulnerable. It's it was so many. Like you said, I think in hindsight now, and I think we spoke about this a bit of in hindsight, I can look back at that time and I can take snippets of it that are time that I'd spent with the kids that I wouldn't, because I was, we sort of joked about, I think before, I said no, we had two different lockdowns really. The first one I was homeschooling. Second one, Kelly was homeschooling, but she was on furlough, so she had that bit of a break. She didn't have to worry about work at all. Knew money was coming in, and she was fine, and she could actually. But she was, I said she had things on the board, and she was all kitted out, and she was like, right, sit down, we're going to do this. And as tough as she still found it, she ever tested that. But I was I was like, look, academically, I wasn't great at school myself. What am I going to, they was teaching me more about maths and stuff than I could teach them, even at 4 years old. So it was a completely different, I think I was like, just survival was I think was the main thing in my head. Just how do I survive this? If I can do math seeds by 11 o'clock, then and they do one part of that, then I've won for the day, and let's do something else, cook or try and. When I gave up, it was the best thing ever, and I remember I was at Hove Park, I think it was, and the teachers used to phone like once a week or something to check in with the kids. And my daughter was like, she learnt to climb trees. You know, she was up a tree, and when he phoned, and I said, "Oh, hang on a minute, I need to get." And he was saying, "How's the work going?" And I could see on her face, like she was like, "Okay." And I said, "Look, can I just have a word with your teacher?" And I just said, "Look, just so you know, we're not doing homeschooling anymore." And he was like, "Oh, okay," And it's just like, we just can't do it. We've only got a 5-minute conversation. I can't explain to you what we've been through, but it's not a decision that I've undertaken lightly. But I just think for the benefit of everyone's mental well-being, we need to not do any more homeschooling. And once I'd made that decision, everyone was just so much happier.
Yeah. And then, because like you said, we're in that environment, I guess, where you're, and the amount, look, what if we can look back in hindsight, you go, oh, what have they missed out on, have they not, like, at the ages that they're at, that they weren't in the middle of their A-levels or middle of GCSEs or anything like that. I'm not saying that it's not maybe effective in some way, but the adverse effects of you not being happy,
it was really damaging.
Yeah, a lot worse than it would be them maybe not doing that maths lesson or whatever it looks like.
And also, I think it's not like if you have a child that's sick and has to go into hospital for a period of time, they lose out that period of time of education, and their peers move on. All of the kids were pretty much in the same boat. I think even the ones like of key workers that were going into school, I don't think it was quite the same. Like they weren't getting the same learning experiences.
No, of course not. Because even the teachers were off all the time, and there was different people coming in. It was just it was a mess, wasn't it? Let's be honest, like that. Like you said,
hopefully
we're all sitting here, touch wood. But I guess then, but when things did start to improve, obviously the construction industry as a whole was, I know obviously more residential, but did obviously that started to improve. Because people then, where there was a bit more safety and guidelines in place, then people were not going away because we couldn't travel still, but maybe then going, right, I will spend more on my home, or that the savings that we had, or that's what that would look like. And so did that then, from a business point of view, then start to improve in that sort of sense?
It's been quite bizarre actually, because now everyone's constantly talking about this cost of living crisis. But I think off the back of the sort of furlough, when people realise actually, and I'm not trying to detract from the fact that some people did lose their jobs and businesses have closed and stuff, and that's incredibly sad. But I think for people who weren't in that situation, they were like, oh, my job's okay. I haven't spent the holiday money. I haven't, and it was almost like there was a bit of a boom then, and we couldn't keep on top of all of the inquiries. We were just getting bombarded left, right, and centre with inquiries for new work, and it was almost like everyone held a breath, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I need to go, and that's why it's quite bizarre because if you contrast that against what we're talking about now, it's like we've done a 180 again, haven't we? Almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I suppose, and like you say, within that type of industry, you do, cause obviously you do the garden rooms and stuff like that. So an amount of people that are going, well, I don't need to go into an office anymore. Like people who commuted. I've spoke to a couple of people, been on the podcast recently. I've had friends who. There was was it John Trigg last time was saying he had a friend who literally he was a 6:45 Portslade Station every single morning, 20 years, bang up there. All of a sudden he's like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
And like they said, they're working from home. Well, but if I'm working from home, I need a better setup. So then they go, well, okay, we can go down this route and we'll spend that little bit more money on making the house better.
Investing in it.
Yeah.
And I think companies have. It's not like we didn't have home working before, and a company like American Express, they're obviously geared up for you to, I would work from home sometimes when I was there,
sure.
but I think other businesses that probably weren't geared up for it, like the tech industry had a massive boom because all of a sudden you've got, businesses that traditionally don't work from home scrabbling around to make the tech work, and now they have. I think, those organisations are much more willing to adopt that hybrid approach once I don't know if it's a mindset thing that they kind of get past that people are not gonna be off down the park jollying it up and not actually putting the hours in that they can be trusted like you say to do that. So I think we will continue to see more of a hybrid.
I definitely think so. I think a couple of things from lockdown the last 2 years is people want to create more of that side. I think businesses want to allow them to do that as well. And I think especially maybe a lot of professional services and stuff like that where that potential archaic way of thinking of going, well, someone's only working if they're sitting in front of me working 9 to 5. That's not necessarily the case. Like somewhere because they wasn't doing it, we was forced to do it. So it's almost brought with technology, etc. It's brought things forward maybe 5-10 years, whatever that looks like. But people are still there. Then, they have actually delivered on. They're not sitting in front of me 9 to 5. But they logged on at 8 o'clock, and then they had a break and picked the kids up at 3, and then they come back and work till 7 or whatever it is. But they're creating a life, a work balance around their lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, very few roles these days are about clocking onto a production line and clocking off again, like 9 to 5. They're about sort of delivering certain things. So, not so much the guys on site because we do have core site hours, but we're very open at Castle to people working flexibly. Like, Joe and Ellie who work in the office with me, they work from home some of the time, and I'll see emails. I have to tell them off sometimes if they send emails on days off or whatever. But they know if a client wants an update, for example, if it's 5:10 and it needs to be sent, they're responsible enough. They know what needs to be done. So I'm not, and I don't want to micromanage people anyway. I mean, it's just so boring. And I just think for a lot of companies, is it really serving you well to have someone sitting on a train for 2 hours each way just so that they can show a presence in the office? You can be much more productive sometimes if you do work the odd day from home.
Of course. And because exactly that, you haven't got that. Whether it is just sitting on a train, it's still tiring. That 2-hour journey going into city and or whatever that looks like.
It's draining.
It's draining. And you got like 4 hours of your day spent. Give me the salon. I was on a motorbike, but 3 hours a day, and I'm like, I look back now. Every time I drive back to Essex, now I can't believe I used to do this every day. Crazy. But anyway, so obviously, much of the challenge. But talk to me a little bit about some success as well. What does that look like to you? To define what success looks like to you, and tell me about some achievements maybe over your career, but certainly within the business side of stuff as well.
Yeah. So. It's funny, isn't it? Because I've listened to a few of these podcasts now, and when you ask business owners about success, it's rarely, I don't think, certainly on your podcast, but like more broadly, you don't hear people saying, "Oh, it's making X amount of
Yeah.
pounds," is it? It's,
no, absolutely.
It's normally about either delivering things for clients or, building a team. Like what I feel when I feel I've been successful is, when we've helped people to grow and develop in the team. Yeah. So we've got a team member who works for us who, when they came to us, was not the most confident and wasn't probably, if they're honest, entirely sure that they could do the role, certainly to the level that they're fulfilling it now. And to see that person grow and develop and gain confidence is just amazing. That, for me, is a success. And equally, we've got a guy who's come from site, and to see he's absolutely flying, and to see him grow and develop. And then for our clients, back when we started the company 17 years ago, my sort of big thing was, why has the construction industry got such a bad rep? Why is it tarred with all this sort of negativity? Wouldn't it be nice if customers could have a consistent experience, like a bit like, when you go to Waitrose, you know what you're going to get. If you go to Quick Fit, you know what you're going to get. Yeah. And I wanted to create that. So success is really about giving a consistent experience to clients and helping them through a process that can be quite challenging for them and quite stressful, but trying to make it as nice as possible. And then it would be remiss of me not to mention my garden rooms project, which is my baby. And seeing that just launch, like getting the brochure done. Oh my God! When you're not a marketing person as well, that's a massive tick in the box for me. Like launching that.
So this is your brainchild, your idea. This is a route we can go down. And
obviously, it's quite topical because. Lots of people working from home now. But I was really surprised. So I think it's like it complements the construction business. And the idea behind it was obviously to offer something that people want. But also we were looking at how can we sort of breadthen our geographic spread. And it's really hard because on the construction side, it can be quite costly and time intensive to price projects. So you might not necessarily want to go further afield. And by having the garden rooms, it's a way for clients to get to know us and our brand and how we work without having to, spend hours and hours on the motorway on, projects that you may not ever have a hope in hell of winning. So it's kind of a segue to have more construction services, and also to offer something that's a superior product in the market. When I did the competitor analysis, I was absolutely shocked at what what companies are selling as a garden room. I mean, it's really just a glorified shed. And I suppose because we're a full-service construction company, we can offer something that's just so much more comprehensive. And it really is an extension to the footprint of your home. Sorry, I'm waxing a bit lyrical. No. As I say, this is my baby.
But again, that's back to the whole thing about running your own business and that, because it's great to, like we talked about me being on the podcast, and I love being in this room and do it. So when you do things that you enjoy and you're passionate about, as you can tell, that's ambition. That's what success is. That's where in the journey of coming up with an idea and seeing it develop and then grow and then there's something magical about that, isn't there?
And I just really would like to get to a point like where I sort of had this from the outset. I never wanted to be like a massive, like huge conglomerate sized business. But to be sufficiently sized so that you can have a bit of influence. Like, as I say, the construction industry does have a bad reputation, and rightly so in a lot of cases, for, shonky work, shoddy customer service, and treating staff really poorly. And it's, to be of a size where you can have an influence over those things is, and we are actually sort of making waves in that area. We do have much better connections now, and you can get the message out, like educating clients that it doesn't have to be like this. It's not sort of, oh love, it's going to cost you this much, type of thing. And to, you can treat people fairly. And they will, they won't just, bugger off site and leave things. You don't have to micromanage things. So, yeah.
Love that. It's one thing I talk on here a lot about is about certain subjects and changing the narrative around what that looks like. What taking from what you're saying is about, because there is a narrative, you're right, there's a narrative out there around the construction industry is exactly all them things you've just alluded to, is what people's immediate mindset would be. So what a great thing, I guess, for you as a company, as a family business, that that's what the purpose that you've got, and because like you said, that most people that come on here don't necessarily talk about the end goal being I'm building a business because I want to create X amount of money and then going to sit on a beach and retire. Of course there's that financial security that potentially that we will get to, but again, back to what the last 2 years has taught us, wouldn't necessarily, however much money we had in the world, we'd be just sitting in a bigger house and doing exactly the same as everyone else, because
it's funny, isn't it? Because when I've thought about an exit strategy, like what do you do with your business?
Yeah.
And I know Caroline Brown was talking about like selling her business on, but then she's gone on to do other things as well. And the way it looks for me when I think about it is like if we ever did get to the point where we sold the business, I'd probably just start another business.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so then you go, well, like, so then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, really, aren't you?
I think that for me, definitely, that I can't ever actually imagine retiring and not doing it. And look, of course, wouldn't it be lovely to get to a point and you sell a business, you make lots of money, and then you've got maybe choices to go and do it. But would I ever stop and do it? I think when you're in that mindset and your brain's like that, that's just. I've accepted that's who I am as a person. So I think there was a guy I interviewed on here, Lawrence Spray, really interesting guy. He sold Ashton's, the pharmaceutical company. At 68, so he'd got to retirement age, and he built up a £20 million turnover business, and sold it and done very well out of it. And he obviously had building it over the 40 years he'd had a good life through that as well, but in a really strong financial position. But you tell, talking to him, that at that stage that the anticlimax of selling that business and being like, well, at one point last week I'm the man who owns Ashton's and the founder and managing director, and my phone's ringing constantly, you're dealing with stuff and blah blah blah, and to there I'm not.
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant entrepreneur and really interesting guy, and you can tell he's looking at investments now, and because he wants to still do something. 68, he's still like.
What is it they say? Be careful what you wish for.
Because
I just do think it can, and if you're trying to get away from something, then the implication is that you're not enjoying what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's like if you're going to sell it because you want to do something else, and you've got ambitions to pursue another channel, or then that's one thing. But and that's why I think when you ask the question about what success means, that's why it's never or rarely like a financial I just want to make X million pounds and then I'm out. It doesn't really work, does it?
No, because we, as our good friend Paul Britton, who we both know, but he sort of said, like, the whole enjoying that journey is what it's all.
Well, I could say, don't forget to dance. Couldn't
I? Still my favourite quote, that one. I only say that to you every time I see him. Well, look, I want to talk as well just about, cause we've sort of alluded a little bit to it there, but about sort of culture and stuff, and because obviously. Again, just looking into you as Castle Construction, your core values: quality, integrity, respect, and transparency.
Well done.
So that underpins everything that you do. But then, within a family business that you're running, talk to me a little bit then, I guess, about the culture you've created there within. Because obviously, you're really passionate about changing that narrative around construction with clients, what that message is, but also with staff and. So
it is really about changing, just changing the approach and saying it doesn't have to be like this. Do you know what I mean? Just because, and I don't hang out with lots of people in construction industry. Like I hang out with a few, but they're sort of like-minded, and they tend to be from companies that think in a similar way and are trying to kind of, push that sort of quality and that value. And also I think, coming from large corporates where you are treated really well, it was a bit of an eye-opener to me, like, seeing people come to work with us who basically, like, they hadn't been paid for 6-7 weeks, or when they were paid, they were just given, well, here's 200 quid and I'll give you the rest later. And that's just not acceptable in this day and age. And I do think, running a business isn't about, us as owners making lots of money and screwing all of the staff over. It's about creating something where we can all, like, benefit together. It's about, I think it was Paul Britton was talking about creating opportunities for people. That really resonated with me, because that is what it's about. It's not just about the cash in the bank at the end of the day. And when I came on board, we had a sort of daily strategy session where we looked at lots of things, and one of the things that we looked at was the core values. And I think it's really important, like, a lot of companies will say our values are X, Y, Z, whatever they are. But then in the day-to-day, if you observe them on a day-to-day basis, they don't embody them.
Sure.
So I think it's really important to think about what you as an individual have as your core values, because if they're not aligned to your business, then you're not going to be successful. And one of the things I thought about, like, American Express is really hot on what they call their blue box values. And one of them that they have is being a good citizen. And that sort of, when I first joined the company, I would sort of, looked at that and I was thinking, well, they don't really have a right to view you on what you do outside of work. But actually, it is really important, because what they were saying is, it's not good enough to just pretend to be a decent human being when you're 9 to 5 in the office or whatever you're working. We want people who are going to come here and be good citizens. And that really resonated with me, and that was something I really thought about when we put together our core values. Like, what do we really want to be for our clients? What do we really want to be for our team? And that's why, like, respect is not just respect for clients, it's respect for one another, it's respect for the team, it's respect for suppliers. So we did think long and hard about those values, and we distilled it down to 4, because obviously it's a lot to remember.
But it is great, because you're right. It's that, again, back to purpose and what you're trying to do. But I think one thing like I said, I think it was the last one when I spoke to John Tree, he was saying that it used to be very much, I think, that's your work and that's your life. So you are going to be different people there and there. But because of hybrid working and because of just naturally how things have been over, just the fact that we've got mobile phone, we do more work at home now, and we're constantly sort of on the go, especially as a business owner. But they almost blend into each other. So if that is the case, then you're right. You can't. You've got to be, ultimately, you've got to be the same person all the way through, haven't you?
It goes back to that word that I was saying I'm not keen on, which is authentic.
It's got to be that, isn't it, though? Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And I think and just with them values, it's really interesting to think that, like you said that not only is that what you do as your home life and what that looks like, but that relates to your business and work life, from clients to staff members and to everyone. So people who surround you and you work with, live with, all buy into those values as you as a person as well as a business, and that will filter through, because, again, but being authentic, and that's what you're living.
And we've witnessed people, like been in builders merchants or whatever, and how people have spoken to their team members or on other side. It's utterly disgraceful, and that's But then to the client, they'll be really nice, and that's just not acceptable. You just can't get away with that. Not that you ever really could. It would never be acceptable in my book. But
no.
do you know what I mean? It's
and you're creating a place, like, again, I mentioned Paul's name again, but you're creating a place where people want to be. You're creating a work environment where people want to work. They want to feel part of that. And that, again, is back to, I guess, you being able to communicate your vision of what you want for the company as a whole, but get them to buy into it. And that's how you create a strong culture, I guess.
It sounds really twee, but I'll very often say, like, we just want to do lovely projects for lovely clients and all have a lovely time at work. It's...
That's the goal,
if
isn't it?
We can do that,
We're winning. It's brilliant. I want to again. This is this question for me is certainly one we've spoke on a couple of occasions about, but the whole work-life balance side of stuff.
What's that then?
I'm looking forward to this. But so, look, I know we've said we've talked about a change, especially look at lockdown and blah blah blah. But yeah, talk to me about, especially within as a husband and wife team as well. So how do you both able to switch off from the business? Or is it constant talk about the business? Talk to me a little bit about. Is there I almost know the answer to it, but work-life balance?
Well, it's funny because, like, I would probably say I don't have work-life balance, but actually thinking about lockdown, what I would say with that whole homeschooling, I was saying to someone, everything just got completely merged.
Yeah.
Like, there was no delineation between school, between home life, between work. It was just a mess. So I have got work-life balance in the sense, but probably not. When people talk about work-life balance, they mean, do you have time to go off and do yoga and have a massage? And no, that doesn't happen ever. But I do get away from the kids now, and I do think you need to have that kind of space. It is quite challenging when you run a business with your spouse. That there are times when we really have to check ourselves because we're doing stuff on the dining room table just for 5 minutes. Let's just send this email, while the kids are on the PlayStation or whatever. And so you do have to be quite careful. But I do try not to work weekends. I do try to keep the time with them. And I guess, I would argue it's not 50-50 split equally, because I do much more of the play date organising and clubs, and I do the booking of after school club and pay for school dinners and stuff like that. But we both do pickups, drop-offs.
Yeah, sure.
So we manage the childcare between us. Yeah. So you reach some sort of balance, and I guess like the utopia that particularly women are probably looking for, which is how do you achieve it all, be a successful career woman and have the kids and bake amazing cakes and run up a costume at a moment's notice. That doesn't exist. You've got to just let stuff go, haven't you? Yeah. My house is an absolute tip. I say it looks like a scene from Breaking Bad most days. Something's got to give. Yeah. And we've got a dog now as well, which is like a fourth child. So it's
it's great to be, because how many, like I say, again, we talk about sort of social media and the influence that has on it, and people put their highlight reels out there, and you do, you get the family picture in, and we're all guilty of it, I suppose. You do it, but and people looking at, God, they look like they've got everything together. And Kelly says sometimes on the WhatsApp groups, like people going, oh, we've done this or X, Y, and Z, and it's always that comparison, but ultimately life's a challenge. When you've got your kids, whatever that looks like is a challenge. If you're running a business at the same time as trying to run a family, but
no one is going to post a photo of themselves hungover saying, I've had a row with my husband and the dog's just crapped on the floor, are they?
Maybe that's where people should start doing that.
That's where we're going wrong.
That's where we're going wrong. But it is, you're right, like I say, it's work-life balance. I don't know. Tell me the whole, a couple of people, and it's something I'm really guilty of. I struggle with it, being able to switch off. Like, I try, and similar to yourself, I try at weekends. I try not to work, and post the odd thing, or I'll maybe send the odd email, or maybe put something together, whatever. But generally, I'm trying to be with the kids, and that's my thing. But just mentally, just trying to switch off yourself. I find it really hard to, and I'm going away at the time of recording this, I'm going away next week, and I'm already thinking, I know I will take the laptop, and I know I shouldn't really, but for my own mental health, for me to log in for a half hour a day when everyone's still asleep, whether that's in the morning or night, that puts my mind at ease, and I'm okay. And then I will switch off, and then I'll go and spend the day on the beach, won't look at my phone and deal with that. I'm cool with that. But I do find it difficult. Is that, do you guys as well? I suppose with me, obviously Kelly's got quite a, she's a managing partner of a law firm, but doesn't run her own business. So, but she still obviously works hard and has got that thing. But I just think as running your business, you're constantly not able to.
Yeah, and we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I can
You know, but it's probably not good. You know, like when you wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock and your husband starts talking to you about Screed or something like that.
You still beams again.
You know, and sometimes I will say like that is enough.
Yeah.
And we do try to sometimes we'll do a bit once the kids are in bed, because that period, you know, when you get home and we have dinner together as a family, that's you know, there are advantages to running your own business, because you do get to do stuff like that. But then sometimes we'll get the laptop out and we'll do a bit in the evening. But then we will try to shut it and say, you need a bit of time before you go to bed.
Yeah,
You know, it's just something you're constantly working at, if I'm honest. There isn't, like, there's no silver bullet, is there? You know, and if there's an emergency, like even Kelly, if she had an important case on and there was a call, she would take it, wouldn't she? I'm sure.
Cool. No, absolutely. And she does. Like, she, you know, she's been juggling. Like, you know, the kids have had chicken pox the last couple of weeks, and we've both been cancelling things and juggling and whatever. And I guess that's just. It's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess
it's like one of those, you know, those jigsaws puzzles that you get where you push the squares around. It's a bit like, well, you go there and who's having the dog? And then, but it's jiu-jitsu tonight. And like, I've given them a cow pole, so they'll be, you know, it is just like that, isn't it?
I've always said, every business owner I talk to, I think, you know, we'd all be brilliant in a circus. Get us there, we can give us some balls, we're juggling and we'll be okay. But we're coming towards the end, and it's been fascinating. Like I said, for me, I knew it would be a brilliant conversation. It really has been, and thank you for just your raw honesty is brilliant. And I that first coffee we had, that's why I was like, we've got to get in that studio and just. You've
made it a very nice experience, I have to say, Sam. You're a true pro.
I don't know about it, but it's very kind. But tell me what the future holds for Rebecca Blott and Castle Construction.
Garden rooms. It's really just kind of what I was saying, just grow to a certain size. I would like to have a bit more influence. I'd like to see more young people coming into the industry. We've got a massive skills shortage. I met with an architect this morning and we were talking about females. You know, it'd be really nice to see more females on the tools. So just the bigger you get, the more ability you have to sort of influence things like that, and that's really important. So I want to see the team grow, and then obviously see the garden room business take off, because that's, as I say, it's been my passion.
And it's really, because you're right, like that, again, the narrative, I guess, around women in the construction industry, it's not, and I guess, you know, people like yourself, trailblazers, people who will go, you know what, and shout about it, and that's why it's great to get yourself on it. It was brilliant to have. It was a fantastic feature you put in SBT last month, and I think the more you can spread that word and encourage and inspire children, because you've got a daughter as well.
I've got two daughters and a son. Yeah, and I think I said, actually for both of them, it's really important. It's getting better, but I think there's a distinct lack of like really good female role models. You know, we had the whole. Thankfully, it's sort of dying off a little bit now, but the whole WAG culture. You know, really, is that what you're aspiring to be? You need to have like positive for boys and for girls. Really, I think that's so important.
No, that's amazing. Okay. Last couple of questions. What one piece, these are quick fire ones, so what one piece of advice would you give to your younger self before starting out on your career?
Be brave. Because fear is really the only thing that will just hold you back. If I could be braver and do more things. They always say, you don't generally regret the things you do, it's the things you didn't do. So be brave, be bold.
Love that. And the tradition for the series 2, as I sort of mentioned, so we've got my previous guest has left a question for you. So this is it. Who has inspired you in business and why?
Ooh. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Do you know what I'm going to say?
I think I do.
So I absolutely love Alex Polizzi, and I got to meet her at a Best of British event, and I was so excited. I couldn't really speak to her because I was just a bit of a gibbering wreck, really. But the reason why I like her is because She's a bit potty-mouthed, like I am, for starters. But she's just incredible. You know, she's a mum. She's an attractive woman, but she's smart. She's, you know, a successful businesswoman. She's very personable. You know, she's down to earth. I mean, what's not to love about her? She just comes across as a really genuine, and, you know, having met her in person, she is all of those things. Yeah. And I think, you know, she for me represents a good role model, female role model, you know, for the younger generation, really.
Yeah. Love that. I'd attest to that. I met her at the same event, and it was the first time, obviously, I'd met her, but had a chat to her, and she is exactly all those things. And I think,
like how you see her on TV is how she is in person. Like, she's just really genuine and down to earth. And she gave me a kiss.
Love that. Brilliant. Well, look, Rebecca, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and look, I can't wait to share this episode. So I know there's going to be so many takeaways from it from people. So thank you again. Thanks so much for your honesty and coming on. So
thank you ever so much, Sam.
Awesome. And
great.
That, as they say, is a wrap.